Hey everyone, welcome back to E3 with IGN. I'm Daniel Krupa and I'm here with Sefton from Rocksteady Games. Hey. Your game is out a lot sooner than the ones we've seen on the show so far, but it is of course one of the biggest games of the year, sure to be Arkham Knight.
Yeah, we're really excited to be here. It's quite unusual to be here demoing a game that you're going to get to play like next week. So,
well, this is actually what I'm going to do to recover from E3. I'm just going to play Arkham Knight all week. So what's this section here? Is this, you said it's not been seen before?
So we're going to show a bit of the free roaming in Gotham, show a bit of the way that Batman traverses around the entire city, the way that we've developed the movement and incorporated the Batmobile into Batman's traversal. And then after that, a little bit later, we'll go and have a look at Two-Face's crew robbing a bank. And that's something that, as you say, we've never shown before to people. So that's a great exclusive. You can see here, wherever you are in the city, you can call in the Batmobile, drive around, do donuts, which is obviously very important. I love the donuts. Spend a lot of time donutting. And basically that integration between Batman and the Batmobile was a really important thing for us. That we didn't want it to feel like a separate thing to Batman. We wanted it to feel like Batman's ultimate gadget. You can get in and out of it at any time. You can call it with a single button press, L1 at any time to call the car in. And then just boom, eject out, as Ian's done there, right on cue, and just fly around the city. And you can see kind of the scale of the city by gliding around. You can really see how big this world is. And that's what we really wanted to bring, like, big chunk of Gotham, but at the same time, keep that rich attention to detail.
I was going to say, because in City, you kind of, Asylum was a kind of more close quarters game, almost like a labyrinth-like structure. City opened up a bit more, and then going even bigger. Is that why it was natural to introduce the Batmobile at that point?
I mean, actually, we decided to do the Batmobile first, and then decided, okay, what kind of city works best for the Batmobile? You know, it's not really our objective to make kind of the biggest game ever. We want to keep that quality and denseness, richness of detail in there. You know, so see some new moves there, ground strike, picking people up off the ground. Yeah, it was about keeping the things that we felt were really important to the universe, that attention to detail and that love and authenticity in every inch of the game, while at the same time expanding the world because we were bringing in the Batmobile and allowing the player to boost around and speed around the city in the Batmobile. So those things were kind of hugely important to get a balance. And that the city was kind of designed around that. So you can really see how much bigger and more epic we are here.
So the Batmobile is not just a mode of transport, it's more integral to the core gameplay, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can see here, well, this is actually the bank, so we'll just have a quick look at this here. So this bank, the alarms are all going off outside the bank. It's a coordinated attack on Gotham, so all the different supervillains are basically focusing in a different area to kind of pull Batman to pieces. So physical attack, psychological attack. So here, Two-Face's crew are basically robbing the banks of Gotham. And it's a sequence where these guys are all armed, you're going to take them on. What's different about this is it's timed. So they have a certain amount of money, they're trying to steal $100 million from the bank. And you have to take out 8 of these enemies before they steal that money. So you can see they're quite cool at the moment. They don't know you're in the bank. So you're going to go there, use your gadgets to take them down. And there's lots of different tricks and tools you can use to do that.
What are some of the new kind of tricks that Batman has?
One of the big things actually we have here is the remote hacking device. And what you can do is when enemies go to walk over the electrified floor, you can turn on the electrified floor and hack into the different traps around the level. So we have that here, and we have other traps in this level that we'll show. You can also see the faster movement. And now the enemies are freaking out. They know Batman's there. He's let off the paint in there. He's going to go in there and take down this enemy. Boom, knockout smash to take him down and get out of there as quickly as possible. So it's a way, the remote hacking device here is a way of manipulating the environment to enable you to do different takedowns. First phase is take down 8 enemies and stop them from stealing all the money. And that's the time when it's stealth in this is something that's much more aggressive. In this game, we've really focused on let's do a fear takedown here, straight into that guy. And then boom, come out and hit this guy. And then you have to be careful now. Obviously, there's lots of armed guys around. So yeah, stealth is something that is much more aggressive. It's actually even more aggressive than it was in previous games. You have the ability to do a fear takedown and chain 3 enemies at once. You can upgrade that to 4 enemies, 5 enemies. And the skill of that is getting really close to them. Okay. So if you can get close to them without them spotting you, then you can chain the takedown. So you get rewarded for moving close to these guys without being seen. The enemies themselves as well have lots more tools as well to take you down with. For example, they have like sentry guns they'll place if they see you using an area too much. And the Arkham Knight himself has been studying Batman's tactics. So if he sees you sneaking up behind a lot of people and doing silent takedowns, he'll tell his men to buddy up and move around back to back. If he sees you taking down people and grappling up to the vantage points and swinging away, he'll get his guys to start mining the vantage points.
Okay, so you can't just rely and like rinse one tactic over and over.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's the temptation with these games. You get really good at one thing, and then it doesn't force you to explore the other options available.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the nice thing is that as they sort of put their focus in on you doing one thing, it enables you to use other things. So if they start, for example, if you use the floor grates, and they detect you're using the floor grates, they'll open up the floor grates and throw mines in to explode them, and they'll also start looking in them. But when they're looking in, they're really vulnerable because they're not looking up anymore. So as they adapt their tactics, it opens up new areas for you to attack as well to counterbalance that.
So is this a core story mission we're seeing?
Sorry?
Is this a story mission?
Yeah, this is part of Two-Face's story. So we don't really call them side stories because each of the supervillains kind of has their own arc. So this is Two-Face's arc. He's robbing the different banks within Gotham. So it starts off, this is the first bank that you rob. It's quite a small one. And by the end, he's up and working on like kind of really big banks. And he's got tons of troops in there supporting him. So this one's fairly easy that we're showing you here. And then it really amps up to much more difficult ones. Like boom, another fear takedown to finish off. Drop in and smashes that guy as well. I've got one more guy to take out. Yeah, so basically there's a lot of new tactics you can use. Like I say, the Predator is just so much more aggressive than it was before, but the enemies are so much more aggressive as well. So it's a balance between those two. There's a full-on arms race. We've got an enemy there who will detect if you're using detective mode.
Yep.
And they'll start locating you and triangulating your position in the level. But if you think about what they did, you can kind of counteract that by watching them detect that, and then you can go and stand in a trap. And they're like, oh, I've got him. Everyone run to this location. Then you leave that location, they turn up, and then you like lock the doors on them. They're like, what happened? Where did he go? You know, so you can sort of, everything they've got, if you think about it, you can use against them as well.
That's cool. So, you know, Batman's famous for being the world's greatest detective, and some adaptations kind of downplay that aspect. What I really like about the Arkham games is it really plays up to it. Is that still the case with Arkham Knight?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that, you know, the authenticity of the Batman experience is such a huge thing for us. So there are a number of things. We have some crime scenes that you need to investigate and rebuild and see what happened throughout the game. We still have some detective mode trials that you need to follow. There's a lot of mysteries in the game that you solve by analysing the crime scenes and putting together various pieces of information. You see there the eject from the car, so you can eject straight into a kick on enemies. Here's a Riddler informant, so we're going to interrogate him for some information on Riddler. So yeah, definitely detective mode is still a huge thing in the game. It's still not just detective mode, but the detective element. And even in the main story, we've got some really cool stuff. Studying video forensics and analysing, and like you see on any good crime show, scrub through the video and look for clues in the video.
Because the Arkham games are mysteries essentially, and obviously you've got a really big mystery element with the identity of the Arkham Knight. Yeah. But Scarecrow is also a main player in the story, isn't he?
Yeah. We really like the idea of the way that the various supervillains challenge Batman in so many varied and different ways. So, you know, Scarecrow's a big psychological threat, and it really allows us to delve deep into Batman's psyche and all the motivations behind Batman. And Scarecrow, really Scarecrow's mission is to destroy Batman, and not to kill him, but to kind of pull apart the hope that he gives to Gotham City. He wants Gotham to experience fear, and the way he wants to do that is to show that Batman cannot protect them. He really wants to destroy the myth of Batman. Great thing as well is in the game, just as Ian's gone to here, you can see all of these iconic locations. So here we have Oracle working in the clock tower. And this clock tower you actually see transform in the game. You can transform it yourself as well into Oracle's main hub of information.
And the transition from external to interior is seamless.
All seamless, yeah. There's not actually a single loading screen in the whole game from start to finish. And that's something that was a lot of work. But
so is that one of the reasons that this is only on the next-gen console? Because you've been working on this for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's been over 3.5 years, and from the minute we finished Arkham City, we started working on this. You know, put our heart and soul into it, and we've been working full speed on it from that point forwards. And really, just because of the richness of detail in every pore, the size of the story is probably as big as Arkham Asylum and Arkham City put together. Wow. So the story's huge. It's just taken a lot of work, and we didn't want to just make a bigger game for the sake of making a bigger game. We wanted to make a game that still had that same heart and soul and depth and intricacy as
It's difficult because
Asylum.
I think a lot of open worlds want to boast that they're X square miles, but then you give yourself the laborious task of filling all the square miles with stuff to do. So how have you got the balance just right with Arkham Knight?
Yeah, well, we wanted to make a city that had that rich detail, but also a city that as you played the game, you got to know and learn and love like Batman does. So you know all the intricate back alleyways and streets that you can go down. I'll just tell you what Ian's doing here, actually. So we have what's in the game. The Arkham Knight deploys these explosive devices throughout the whole of Gotham, and Batman works to defuse them. As you're defusing them, the Arkham Knight scrambles these drone tanks to attack you. So these tanks show a little bit of the battle mode gameplay of the Batmobile. So here you're dodging between the attacking incoming drone tanks. And as you take out these tanks, this powers up your secondary weapon. You can see that green bar around the crosshair is powering up. If you get hit, that powers back down again. And as he powers that up, some bigger tanks with the triple fire there that he's taking out. As you power that up, you can unleash the missile barrage. And depending on which beacon you're going for, they get harder and harder to... so here's the missile barrage now for... take out 4 tanks at once with that. And you get in a really nice flow with this combat, like as you're dodging the incoming fire. The longer you can dodge, the higher combo you build as well. And if you shoot for the turrets, you take out the tanks much quicker than if you shoot for the base of the tanks. And even if you look at the little glowing sensor device, you can shoot that with the Vulcan gun and take them out in one hit with that. But it does take a lot of skill to do that. So you're basically balancing up all of these different tactics as you play these battles.
So this is like, this is visually this is a big departure for the series, but it's something you had to do, I think, to make it feel different.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we're always aiming to do is, sounds a bit crazy in a sense, but we're not really in the business of making sequels. We wanted to put in as much new stuff in this game as we'd put in the previous games. That we really wanted it to feel, even if you've played the previous games, this is a completely new, fresh experience. So adding the Batmobile really enabled us to blow that right out. The battle mode of the Batmobile is obviously needed because the Arkham Knight's coming with this entire military force. So we bring in this whole battle mode combat gameplay, but when you play it, you'll see the way that the underlying gameplay is tied into all the skills that you've learned before as well. So there's definitely a good cross-pollination of those skills and the way it flows and works together. And you can see for every side mission you complete, you get an upgrade point, which you can use to develop the car or Batman as well.
So yeah, the Batmobile's fully upgradable like Batman himself?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. And the more that you play, he's rolled the car, the more that you play, the more that you can follow the main story, but if you go off and do the most wanted missions, that's a great way to boost up Batman quickly. So there's a really good incentive to go off and destroy all of these other forces around Gotham as well. So really, filling the city with great things to do, this richness of detail. You can see the burning building in the background is something that Firefly set fire to. Thugs populating the streets. There's tons of thugs on the streets. The city's been evacuated, but it's still fully populated. That's something that we really want to
Yeah, just early on when we were in the Batmobile, there was a Riddler symbol on like a garage door.
Yeah.
So the Riddler challenge is obviously in every game, but here they're slightly adapted to suit the Batmobile.
Yeah, there's a mixture of those. So he's really the Batmobile allows us to create some really interesting puzzles, which are very different to anything we've done before. And because the Batmobile has a remote mode, you can be controlling Batman and controlling the Batmobile separately to take down, to complete different puzzles as well. So yeah, there's a ton of puzzles in the city, some Batmobile, some Batman, some combinations of both. There's a ton of stuff to do.
The combat, Arkham Asylum came out, everyone fell in love with the combat, and we've seen that combat kind of being reproduced in other games. What's that been like for you? Obviously it's flattering, imitation is a form of flattery, but then what's the pressure on you to keep on innovating and improving? What is your system?
Yeah, I think one of the things we didn't want to do was change the underlying system that people had got used to, react to it too violently and say, okay, there are similar systems, but we really like our system, we really like the way it works, and we don't think anyone else has quite perfected it the way we have. And so instead of completely changing, we've built and developed on what we have, and we've done that in kind of two main ways. At a top level, we've made it so that there are new moves that every player is going to see. Charging enemies who'll come at you that you can take down instantly with a batarang. There's enemies that grab you. And then at kind of the lower level for experienced players, we have new moves that you can interweave into the combat, like picking enemies up off the floor. We have critical counters where if an enemy goes to hit you and you push back in their direction and press counter at the last minute, you do double damage. So basically for the players who are kind of more skilled, there's immediate depth for them. And for everyone coming in, there's also new features they see right from the off. So yeah, it's kind of free flow 3.0 really, you know, building on what we did.
Did you deliberate long and hard about the idea of putting effectively a gun on the Batmobile? Because obviously Batman's parents were killed by a gun. It's kind of a controversial issue, and sometimes he has used guns in the comics, but was that a big kind of dilemma? But obviously having a weapon like that is just useful for gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, I think historically the Batmobile has had weapons, you know, even in the comics. We would never give Batman a gun, you know, you're not going to see Batman kind of walking around with a gun, but the Batmobile itself has weaponry. That weaponry, certainly the guns, are never used against any civilians or thugs or anyone. You know, he does have a riot suppressor, which he was using a bit earlier in this demo. So if it kind of fires a beanbag style projectile, which knocks enemies out, and the gun automatically switches between those. If you target a group of rioters, it will automatically switch to taking enemies, to incapacitating enemies rather than killing them.
Yeah.
So there's another one of the missions as well in the city is, because it's a coordinated attack on the city, the supervillains have been planning this for a year. One of the supervillains is basically heading up this attack on the fire crew, and they're taking the fire crew hostage throughout the city and basically trying to drag Batman to the far corners and lure him into these traps. So you can see Ian there rescued one of the fire crew in the city as well. So you can see the burning building on your right there.
And does it all take place across one night, like previous games?
Yeah, kind of our signature, I guess, that it all happens across one night. One long night, it would be fair to say. You know, it's a lot of hours to beat the game, and it'll be a very long night. But
and it's set on Halloween, isn't it?
Sorry,
is it set on Halloween?
This game is definitely set on Halloween. Yes, it is.
Did you look to kind of long Halloween or any specific source material for inspiration?
I mean, I love Long Halloween. I think it's one of my favorite comics of the whole series. But I mean, I guess we don't sort of directly take, you know, inspiration is something we take from all the comics, but we don't directly sort of lift.
Because you've adapted, because you've taken 70 odd years of Batman history and kind of put your unique spin on it. Like, you've redone a lot of the villains in your own style I haven't seen done elsewhere like that. So you've really created your own kind of version of the Batman myth.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we've been hugely privileged to do. You know, even after 8.5 years of working on it, it's not something that we ever lose sight of, the fact that we're incredibly privileged to work on this. I'll just talk quickly about this puzzle because it's a really cool puzzle. So Ian's used the Batmobile to pull out this block here. And he's going to spray the explosive gel on that. You can see he's used the winch feature of the Batmobile. He's trying to clear these steam vents out to get to the Riddler trophy that's behind there. So he's going to flip to remote control of the Batmobile, move that block back in, and as he moves that back in, then he can switch back to Batman, and the explosive gel is now next to that pipe, and he can use that to detonate and clear out that steam vent. So you'll see this with the Riddler puzzles throughout the city. So trying to get to that puzzle at the end there, to the trophy at the end there. That each one of those, we actually have 243 Riddler secrets to get.
Wow.
But they're a lot more cunning than before as well. They require a lot more. They're a lot more sophisticated, the puzzles. So you see a bit of the Riddler grid here, just a little tease of how many of these things there are in the game. So yeah, there's a ton of that to do. But each one has its own, you know, a really big piece of gameplay.
And stuff like this is what makes the open world compelling, putting that amount of time and effort, whereas maybe other games would just give you a collectible.
Yeah, I think just hanging them around wasn't something that we wanted to do. Like every collectible, Ian, who's our lead designer, who's playing now, we'll sit down and go through and talk about exactly where that is in the city and why that's in an interesting place and what we can do with that. to make each one of them rewarding and challenging to collect.
At Sony's conference, they kind of showed off again the Scarecrow missions. Can you talk a little bit about that? If people maybe undecided which version they're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, actually at the Sony conference, that it wasn't actually a Scarecrow mission that we showed. It was actually the opening 4 minutes of the game.
Wow, okay.
So the very first thing you see in the game. And the reason what you saw there was, first of all, Joker get incinerated, because there were some people who didn't believe that we killed Joker. So we were like, how can we kind of
people will never believe it.
right from the off? So let's start with Joker in an incinerator and let you do what Gordon does and incinerate the body. So like, let's quash that speculation right up front. And then after that, we're actually, because Scarecrow's such a big psychological threat, we wanted to show firsthand what Scarecrow's fear toxin is like. So you then take on the role of Officer Owens in the diner, as the diner's under this chemical weapons attack. You know, as the diner is attacked by he gets exposed to the fear toxin, and you can see firsthand how dangerous this new strain of fear toxin is.
Because I think the Scarecrow sequences from the Arkham games, if you ask people about Arkham, they remember the Scarecrow sequences. The first one in Asylum, like, is very vibrant in my memory with walking down the corridor. Is it kind of like, you have to like top yourself with the Scarecrow stuff?
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, I also thought we were kind of conscious that we didn't want to repeat what we'd done in Asylum, that with Scarecrow we wanted to do something different. So it's still the psychological attacks, but we didn't want to just do it the same way. So I don't really want to get into spoiler territory too much, but we really wanted to that Scarecrow will have a slightly different role, it would be fair to say, but definitely still keeping what you know of Scarecrow, and they're definitely a rich psychological attack, but not a repeat of what we did in Asylum.
One thing that people like about the previous games is finding those kind of little DC Easter eggs. This is a bigger world. Are there more of those?
Yeah, we went crazy with the Easter eggs. Again, we knew it was our last game. We knew it was the last Batman game we were going to get to make. So, yeah, we really wanted to show our love for this universe, and that's one way of showing that. So, there's a lot in there. Again, there's probably as many as Asylum and City added together. So there's a huge ton of Easter eggs in there that people are going to get to find. And there's so much of the story we haven't told, which is one of the great things I like about, up front, we spoke to Warner Brothers and DC and said, like, we want to tell this story, but we want players to get to experience it for themselves. So pretty much in all the trailers we've shown, in everything we've shown in the game, you've only really seen anything from the first 2 hours of the game. This is a huge game, and we've managed to get this far without spoiling anything later on. So, hopefully you'll get to play it, and everything you'll see in the story is going to be a big surprise.
But there's a lot more to come even after the game's out. You've announced kind of extensive DLC. Can you just kind of recap what some of that stuff is?
Yeah, so we have a big season of DLC. So for 6 months, every month we're going to drop a big DLC chunk of content, starting with the first month is Batgirl. So it's a whole standalone mission for Batgirl, like a kind of prequel where you get to play as Barbara Gordon when she was Batgirl. And and each month we're going to drop a chunk like that. You're going to get new Batmobiles, new tracks to drive the new Batmobiles on, some classic Batmobiles that you always wanted to drive. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff coming over those 6 months as well.
That sounds great. Thank you very much for coming and showing us this extended look at Arkham Knight. So that's Arkham Knight. It's out next week, but for more on E3 2015, stay right here on IGN.